Hello everyone, thank you for joining me again for another video. Today we're going to talk about an important topic, that is the uses of participles and infinitives in a sentence. So before we begin, I want to let you know about two very important things, that is participles and infinitives. You may be wondering what it is. So participles are words that have ing attached to it. That means verbs, right? So if we have words such as play, if you have words such as play in the sentence and you add ing to make it a continuous form, what happens to that very word? It becomes a participle. If I have the word have and I am using ing, so what will I have? Having in this sentence, right? So that also becomes a participle. So participles are all the words that has ing, all the forms of words that has ing attached to it to make a different word from base verb. And that is what participles are. Now, what are infinitives? Infinitives are words that has verbs, that has attached word to it. And that is what is the attached word? The word is to. So for example, if you're writing infinitives, what will that be? If I say swim, this is the base verb, verb 1, right? So when you add the word to swim, to plus swim, this becomes the infinitives, right? So participles are words, verbs that have ing attached to it, and infinitives are verbs, base verbs that has what? That has to attached to it. Now, when I say base verb, what does that mean? Verbs has three forms, okay? Verb 1, verb 2, and verb 3. So what is verb 1? Verb 1 is the base word, the original word. So for example, if you have the word play in the sentence, right? Or even the word plate. Both of these words has an addition to the original word, and that is what? Ing and ed. Ing is the participle that we talked about earlier, and ed is the past participle. That means if you add ed to the word, it becomes a past form, right? So therefore, these two are additional additions within the word. So it changes the meaning of the word itself. But if you just look at the two words, you'll see that the word play is the origin. The word playing and played are derived from the original word, that is the word play. This original word is the verb 1. Okay, and when we look at infinitives, we see that we have a combination of 2 plus verb 1 in this sentence. So to swim, to play, to dance, to jump, to walk, all of these are considered as what? As infinitives. So today we're going to look into what are the rules of usage of infinitives and participles in the sentence. So without any further ado, we'll move on. Let's take a look. Verbs that are followed by object plus 2 plus verb 1. Okay, not verb 2 but verb 1. So what does this mean? There are certain verbs such as ask, advise, allow, command, forbid, invite, encourage, etc. These words are followed by objects. If you do not have an object following these words, then that means there is an error within the sentence. Okay? And whenever you have these verbs along with the infinitive in a sentence, we must always have what? An object that we must what? Give into the infinitives. That means we must have an infinitive that is related to an object within the sentence. If not, then that's going to be an incorrect sentence. Let's take a look at the words given here. Ask, advise, allow, command, invite, encourage, compel, beg, order, imagine. Now, if you look at these words, it all has some kind of relation to somebody else. That means it has some kind of transference within the word. For example, when you allow someone, the word allow. When you allow someone, what happens? You're giving permission to another person, right? So the allow word is being transferred or is given to someone else. So there must be an object that must receive that very word. If not, then that's a wrong sentence. If we look at this example, for example, let's take a look. He advised to do it by me. So here in the sentence we have who, the subject, advised is the verb, that is the main verb, right? And then we have to do. What is that? To do is the infinitive. Yes, to do is the infinitive. Therefore, what do we have? Advised plus infinitive. Now, what do I say? Verbs that are advised, allow, ask are always followed by what? Object, and then you write the infinitive. That means this sentence is a wrong sentence. How will you correct the sentence? Let's take a look. He advised. Now, by me is the object here, right? So, what will you write? He advised me to do it. So, me is the object in the sentence, okay? And to do is the infinitive. For example, if I write, she asked me to write the letter, right? So in the sentence, what do we see? We see she as the subject and asked is the main verb. So the main verb is talking about what? Asking. Asking who? We need someone within the sentence. In order for me to write an infinitive in the sentence, I need an object with this verb, okay? And that object is me in the sentence. She asked me to write the letter. So if I write the sentence, she asked to write the letter, then that's a wrong sentence. Again, it's grammatically incorrect because we did not write any object with the infinitive. Now, you have to also remember this, that passive voice has some sort of exception. All the sentences that we've talked about, he advised me to do this, she asked me to do that, right? So all of these sentences are in active voices. The exception is that you will remove this rule when it comes to what? When it comes to passive voice. So for example, if I write, she was permitted to go with him. Now here in the sentence, she is the subject, was is the auxiliary verb, permitted is the main verb. And again, we have to go, which is infinitive. Yes? So that means what? This sentence is a passive voice. And when you have a passive voice, you will always be able to write infinitive without the object. But when you have active voice, you cannot write an infinitive without the object. So clear, let it be clear that when you have a sentence that has such words such as encourage, compel, beg, order, etc., then in the active voice, then you will write it with infinitive and object. If not, if you have a passive voice, then you can write these verbs without the object in the sentence. Next one. Whenever we see the word no, we always use the interrogative word. And any interrogative word. According to the context of the sentence, you will have to use any interrogative word. What are interrogative words? The word interrogative means asking questions. So any type of words that ask questions will be used with the word no, according to the context of the sentence when you have an infinitive in the sentence. Let's take a look. No is followed by what, how, where, when, why, and infinitive. Okay? So, for example, I know to write a letter. Do you see any problem in this sentence? Absolutely, right? What is that? You see the word no, and then directly you see what? Infinitive again. Right? So directly using an infinitive right after the word no. That means there's a missing element. And what is that missing element? Interrogative word. Therefore, how will you write this? I know how to write a letter. So maybe you're talking about your ability of writing a letter, right? That way you will have to write, I know how to write a letter. So what is how? Interrogative word. To write is the infinitive. This is the correct usage, okay? This is the wrong usage of a sentence. So with this, I think that is clear about the second point with the usage of infinitives. The third one is bare infinitives. Bare infinitives after certain verbs. There are certain verbs that you will have to use bare infinitives. Now, infinitives we all know. 2 plus verb 1. But what is bare infinitives? Bare infinitives are basically when you remove the word to in the sentence, okay? In the combination of infinitives. So words such as let, bid, behold, watch, see, feel, make, etc. These are all what? Bare infinitives. And what do? There are certain bare infinitives that you have to write after certain verbs. So let's take a look at this one. I heard him to speak on several subjects. I heard him to speak on several subjects. If you take a look at this sentence, what is the problem here? The problem is that I have used the word heard in the sentence. And that is why when I write I heard him, to speak does not make sense. Yes or no? Because here, if you look at this, there are certain words such as after, led, him, feel, make, etc. Now, all of these words suggest some kind of stationary, some kind of state of the action. And therefore, when you see the state of the action, it cannot be used with infinitives. Okay? When you see heard or bid or let or behold, then what will happen? You will write the base verb, that is bare infinitive, which is verb 1, without the combination of 2 plus verb 1. So I heard him speak on several subjects is the right answer. I heard him to speak on several subjects, wrong again. So there's usage of infinitives in all types of sentences, okay? But in certain verbs, so in certain words, that verbs that convey some kind of stationary within the sentence, then you don't use infinitives. The next point is bare infinitives after modal auxiliary verbs. Modal auxiliary verbs are words such as can, could, may, might, and etc. Okay, these are all words that convey some kind of possibility, probability, or capability in a sentence. They are a little different from auxiliary verbs. Now, what do? When we have modal auxiliary verbs, we use bare infinitives. That means we don't use the infinitives, we use bare infinitives. For example, if I say I can to jump, that doesn't sound correct, right? So therefore, I will remove the word to in order to write I can jump in the water. Example, okay? So that way, modal auxiliary verbs cannot be followed by infinitives, but rather by bare infinitives. So let's take a look at the example here. You need not work hard. You need not to work hard, right? That's the sentence. If I write you need not to work hard, need is the modal auxiliary verb talking about what? Whether there is a possibility or whether there shouldn't be a possibility. Yes or no? So that means if I write you need not to work hard, this is a wrong sentence. Why? Because I've used an infinitive. So in order for me to change this sentence, what will I write? I will write the bare infinitive. Bare infinitive is what? You need not work hard. Work is bare infinitive. Need not to work is what? Infinitive. So therefore, whether you write this or this depends on what? On what auxiliary verb you're using. Okay? So if you write may, should, will, would, all this will not carry what? Will not carry an infinitive. It will carry a bare infinitive. Okay, words such as had better, had rather, and similar expressions are followed by bare infinitives. If you have words such as had better, had rather, and other similar expressions, you will always find bare infinitives and not infinitives. That is 2 plus verb 1. For example, if I say he had better to go now, I had rather to finish now. All this has what? 2 plus verb 1, right? Now all these statements are grammatically incorrect. If I want to write this in a grammatically correct type of sentence, what will I write? He had better go now, or I had better finish now. So what do we see? The words are bare infinitives. They are not in the form of what? Infinitives, okay? So let's take a look at this one here. Had better, right? Here we have infinitives. Here we have bare infinitive. Which one is correct? This one. I'm just saying that, okay? Had rather, if you have this one, he had rather right? Again, go will be the correct answer rather than to go in the sentence. So that is what you have to make sure to identify within a sentence to make sure that the sentence is grammatically correct. Whether you use bare infinitives or infinitives depends on what verb has been used within the sentence also. Now, we also have a certain preposition called but, which can also sometimes function as a conjunction, but it is also sometimes functioning as a preposition. Okay, so when a word but functions as a preposition, after the word do, we always again use the word that is bare infinitive again. We don't use infinitives in any type of sentence. So two things you have to remember. First is but that performs the function of a preposition. Okay, and again we have the forms of do. Now under forms of do we have three things: do, did, and does. These three are the forms of do, right? So among any of this, if it's written after the preposition but, then we will use their infinitives. So three combinations. First step is what? Identify the word do. Do, did, or does. Clear? Second point is but is there as a preposition. If that's the case, then what will happen? The third point is that you will have to use the bare infinitive in the sentence. So let's take a look at an example. He did nothing but to wonder. So two things are here. We have the word did plus the word but. Right? Did is what? The forms of do. Again, we have but, which performs the function of a preposition in the sentence. So we have the clear combination. So again, let's take a look at the verb used here. To wonder. So this means to plus wonder, which is what? Is it bare or infinitive? It is infinitive. That's the problem here, right? So we will have to change it. How will we change it? By writing it in the correct form. He did has been written here plus preposition but, and then we have what? The bare infinitive without the word to in the sentence. This is the correct usage of the sentence. Okay, so grammatically, three things, like I said, you have to remember. First point is the forms of do or did or does. If it's there, then you'll have to look at whether preposition but is also there, right? And if so, then you'll use bare infinitive and not the infinitive. So with that, that's the part of infinitives that has been covered. Now we move on to participles. Participles is a very simple topic. We all know what is participle. ing form added to the base verb. So participles must have a subject of reference. That means what? That means it must always have someone that it is referring to within the sentence. Otherwise, it won't make complete sense. Okay. So for example, if I write, being a rainy day, Vijay decided to stay at home. The word being is be plus ing, right? Be is the verb, base verb plus ing. Okay, this one is a participle. That means it's a word within the sentence talking about what? A rainy day. But here in this sentence, is it referring or being referred to any type of subject in the sentence? No, right? So what do? The problem is the word being is not referring to any clear subject in the sentence. So I will add another subject that is called it. It being a rainy day, Vijay decided to stay home. Now the word it refers to the what? The subject. So the word it is the subject, which is the weather. Okay, I'm talking about the weather. The weather is rainy, right? So therefore, being a rainy day by itself does not make sense. Participle must always refer to a subject. Okay, therefore I have written it being a rainy day, Vijay decided to stay at home. That will be the correct usage of a participle. That's the first point. Now we move on to the second point. Participles for completed actions. This one is very important because A lot of times we see ing as a continuous form of the action, right? So we don't associate it with the past form, but let's take a look. For completed actions, having plus verb 3 is used. Past participle form of the verb is used in active voice, whereas having been verb 3 or being plus verb 3 is used in passive voice. Now, if I say verb 3, having been, and all this, it might sound a little too complicated, but let's take a look at the example here, okay? In active voice, we have having plus verb 3. So, for example, if I write a sentence, having plus plate, what do we have? We have the word having, that is the participle form, and then the what? The third form of the verb, right? If I write having been dash, having been played, okay, having been played. Now here we have the same combination, having been plus verb 3. Now this is the combination of active and passive voice. If you have a participle with verb 3, it will be in the active voice. If you have a participle plus been plus verb 3, then it will be a passive voice. Another one is being played, which can be used with a passive voice again. So these are the three examples of the structure, okay? Now let's take a look at what roles they play within the sentence, right? So if I write, after the leader having been killed, the followers ran away. After the leader having been killed, the followers ran away. Now what do we see this? We see that there is a continuous action, but then at the same time it is what? Completed action as well. Yes or no? So how do we use this within the sentence? The leader having been killed, the followers ran away. Okay, so the action of the leader, right? The action of the leader being killed has been completed again. Beforehand, before the followers ran away, the leader had been killed. So this is participles for completed actions. That means when you use the participle ing and you're using it for completed actions, you may have the participle form, but you will also have ed form of the verb. I hope this is clear. So with this, I think we have completed the second point. The third point is very simple. Participles without subject of reference. Now, like I told you earlier, participles, earlier on we had participles that needed subjects, right? Here in the sentence, I'm saying participles such as considering, judging, referring, concerning, regarding, etc. do not take any subject of reference. Earlier, we talked about how being needed a subject of reference, but in this type of sentences where you have verbs such as judging, referring, etc., you will not have any subject of reference. Let's take a look at example here. Considering the case, I took the decision. We have what? Considering, the word considering, right? So it's a participle, but here we do not have any object in the sentence. Rather, just saying, considering the case, I took the decision. So why do we do that? Because we do not have words that are transferring to anything. Yes or no? The word considering is not transferring to anything, so I don't need an object to make complete sense. So this is the correct usage. So one thing is there that these participles are exceptions and do not require a subject of reference. Earlier on, like I told you, certain participles need what? Subject of reference, whereas these verbs do not need any kind of subject of reference. So with this, I think we have ended our class. So I hope you'll join me again for another such interesting topics. I hope you've learned more and keep joining us for another such video. Thank you so much.